I'm Catherine, and I'm currently standing in Ørstedsparken's park in the middle of Copenhagen, not too far from Israel Plads and Nordport Station. So this park is known for drawing people all over the city for its scenic views and beautiful landscape. And the reason I've chosen to focus on this park in particular is because it's actually one of my favorite places in Copenhagen, especially now that it's finally spring and we have flowers and trees and leaves coming out. It's just really pretty. So let's get started.
Ørstedsparken has been open to the public since 1879, and for the most part its appearance has remained unchanged since its construction. The park features 2 lakes separated by a bridge and plenty of walking paths throughout. Today the park is a very popular spot for people meeting up with friends or just trying to find some peace and quiet in the middle of the city. Now, since the park is so big, I'm going to be focusing my study on just one small section of the park on a pathway wedged between a series of benches and a grassy area sloping down to one of the lakes. One thing I've noticed is that these benches are often not used. My goal is to figure out how people are actually using this area and how we could encourage them to stop and spend more time here rather than just passing right through. So over the course of a week, I sat down on one of the park benches for 15-minute intervals and actually recorded what people were doing along the stretch, with categories like biking, running, walking the dog, and so on. I also used Ian Gale's necessary and optional activities chart from How to Study Public Life to give each of these activities a score on a scale of 1 to 7. Lower numbers were given to more necessary activities like biking or walking to work, while higher numbers were assigned to activities like taking a stroll or sitting to read. After repeating this process 5 times, I sat down and began to analyze the data I'd collected. What I found is that the vast majority of people along this stretch were moving and not stopping to sit or stand. In fact, out of the 181 people I observed in my study, only 17 paused for more than a minute or sat on one of the park benches. Also, about half the groups were using the park for more necessary activities like commuting on bike or on foot. The other half were engaged in activities that fell into the neutral to optional range. This wasn't too surprising since many people come to the park for the atmosphere and scenery. But what I did find a little unusual is that on days where the weather was not as nice, fewer people came to the park, as you would expect, but the percentage engaging in optional activities stayed more or less the same, like this guy who's taking a stroll through the rain and hail. Something interesting I did notice is that many people seem drawn to the water and grass. This behavior makes me wonder whether making the grassy area and water more accessible would encourage people to use the space more. Maybe people don't sit by the water here because the slope is too steep or there isn't a path encouraging interaction with the lake. However, based on my own perceptions of being in the space, I think that the area is a little bit too narrow for people to feel comfortable there for long periods of time. The walkway itself is narrower than others in the park, and one side is lined with trees, the other with a steep slope. I think that making the area so tight gives people the impression that it's meant for passing through, like a hallway. Despite the benches, people get the subtle impression that they're not meant to stay here for extended periods of time, unlike more populated areas of the park. If the park wanted to encourage people to rest and the park benches or slope here, I think a possible solution could be to widen the path and clear out some of the shrubs to make the area more open.